Billionaire gave his black credit card to test a 7-year-old paralyzed street girl begging for leftovers at his restaurant, but what she bought left him shocked. Before we unfold this journey, press like and share where you're from and your favorite life lesson. The crash of thunder masked the sound of tiny wheels rolling across wet pavement. 7-year-old Emma Rodriguez maneuvered her weathered wheelchair through the rain-soaked alley behind Giovanni's, Chicago's most exclusive restaurant. Her thin frame shivered beneath a tattered pink sweater, but her dark eyes burned with determination as she approached the service entrance. "Please, just scraps," she whispered to the kitchen worker who emerged with a garbage bag. "Anything you can't use." Marcus Giovanni, the billionaire restaurateur, had been inspecting his flagship location when he heard the small voice. At 52, he'd built an empire of fine dining establishments, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of this child, paralyzed from the waist down, alone in a storm, begging for leftovers. "What are you doing here, little one?" His Italian accent softened the question, but Emma's eyes widened with fear. She'd learned to be wary of strangers, especially ones wearing expensive suits. "I'm sorry, mister, I'll leave." She began backing away, but Marcus stepped forward, his heart breaking at her obvious terror. "No, wait. You're hungry." When she nodded reluctantly, he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Come inside. It's too cold out here." The restaurant's warmth enveloped them as Marcus guided her wheelchair to a quiet corner booth. Emma's eyes grew wide at the crystal chandeliers and marble floors, a world so far from the cramped quarters of Mercy Home Orphanage, where she'd lived since the car accident that killed her parents 2 years ago. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma," she whispered, her small hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I live at Mercy Home. Sister Catherine says I'm not supposed to bother people, but the little ones are so hungry and Tommy got sick again because—" "Slow down," Marcus said gently, signaling his head chef. "First, let's get you something to eat." And as Emma carefully consumed a bowl of minestrone soup, she told him about the 23 children at the underfunded orphanage. How 5-year-old Tommy's asthma worsened from malnutrition. How baby Sarah cried through the night from hunger. How the older kids pretended they weren't starving so the younger ones could eat first. Marcus listened, something stirring in his chest that he hadn't felt in years, not since losing his own daughter to cancer a decade ago. Emma's selflessness reminded him of little Sophia, who'd given away her toys to sick children in the hospital, even as she fought her own battle. "Emma," he said suddenly, reaching into his wallet, "I want to give you something." Her eyes widened as he placed a black American Express card on the table between them, the exclusive Centurion card that had no spending limit. "This is for you. Buy whatever you need." Emma stared at the card as if it might disappear. I don't understand. This is yours." "Not anymore. It's yours now. The only rule is that you use it wisely." Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. Something about this child's pure heart made him want to test whether true goodness still existed in the world. With trembling fingers, Emma picked up the card. "Are you sure, mister?" "Marcus, my name is Marcus Giovanni, and yes, I'm absolutely sure." That night, as Marcus returned to his penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, he couldn't stop thinking about Emma's face when she held that card. He'd given her unlimited access to his fortune on pure instinct. Part of him wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. Would she be like everyone else, selfish, greedy, thinking only of herself? By morning, he had his answer. Marcus woke at 5 a.m. to his phone buzzing insistently. His assistant's frantic voice greeted him before he could fully form a greeting. "Mr. Giovanni, sir, there's been unusual activity on the Centurion card you reported missing yesterday. Multiple transactions starting at 6 a.m. "I didn't report it missing," Marcus interrupted, his mind instantly going to Emma. "What kind of transactions?" "Sir, someone's been shopping since dawn. Walmart, Target, Costco, over $30,000 spent already, and it's only 9 a.m. Marcus's heart sank. Perhaps he'd been wrong about Emma after all. Perhaps desperation had turned even this innocent child into another person seeking to exploit his wealth. "Cancel the card," he started to say, then stopped. "Actually, no. Send me the detailed transaction list. Everything." 20 minutes later, Marcus stared at his phone screen in his Ferrari, speeding toward the orphanage. The purchases made no sense. No expensive toys, no designer clothes, no electronics. Instead, formula, diapers, children's medicine, blankets, shoes in multiple small sizes, basic clothing, and enough non-perishable food to feed a small army. At Mercy Home, he found chaos. Delivery trucks lined the narrow street, workers unloading box after box, while Sister Catherine, a woman in her 60s with kind but weary eyes, directed traffic with the exhausted efficiency of someone accustomed to miracles being in short supply. "Excuse me," Marcus approached her. "I'm looking for Emma Rodriguez." Sister Catherine's face brightened, despite her obvious overwhelm. "You must be Marcus. Emma's told everyone about the nice man who gave her dinner. She's inside trying to organize all this." She gestured at the boxes. "I don't understand where all this came from. Emma said an angel helped her." Inside the cramped orphanage, Marcus found Emma surrounded by children of all ages, her wheelchair positioned at the center as she directed the distribution of supplies like a tiny general commanding her troops. "Tommy gets the inhaler first," she was saying to a teenage boy, helping with medical supplies. "And make sure baby Sarah gets the special formula. The doctor said it's easier on her tummy." She looked up as Marcus approached, her face lighting up with joy rather than guilt. "Marcus, you came back. Look what happened. Everything the kids needed just appeared. Sister Catherine says it's a miracle, but I think maybe you had something to do with it." Her innocent smile made his chest tighten. "Emma," he said carefully, "where did you go this morning?" "Oh, I went shopping for everyone. A nice lady with a big truck helped me reach everything I couldn't get to from my chair. Look!" She wheeled over to a corner where she'd carefully arranged items by age group. Medicine for Tommy, formula for the babies, warm clothes for everyone. The teenagers need shoes the most. Their feet are growing so fast. Marcus knelt beside her wheelchair, studying her face for any sign of deception. All he found was pure, radiant joy. "Emma, do you still have the card I gave you?" She nodded, reaching into her sweater pocket to produce the black card, holding it out to him. "Do you need it back?" "I saved money where I could. The store lady showed me how to compare prices." Marcus stared at the card, then at this remarkable child who had been given unlimited wealth and used it to care for others. His throat felt tight as he spoke. "How much do you think you spent?" Emma's face scrunched in concentration. "Maybe $40. I tried to be careful with your money." $40,000. She'd spent $40,000 and thought it was 40. This 7-year-old had no concept of the card's true power, yet she'd used it more wisely than most adults he knew. "Emma," he said softly, "keep the card. In fact, I want to see what else you might need." But even as he spoke, Marcus realized something extraordinary was happening. This wasn't just about charity anymore. Emma had awakened something in him that he'd thought died with his daughter. The belief that goodness could triumph over greed, that innocence could transform the world. What he didn't yet understand was how completely this small girl was about to revolutionize not just the orphanage, but his entire life. 3 days later, Marcus found himself doing something he hadn't done in years, canceling business meetings to spend time at Mercy Home. He told himself he was simply monitoring his investment, but the truth was more complex. Watching Emma navigate her world with such grace and determination filled a void in his heart he'd forgotten existed. "Mr. Giovanni," Sister Catherine approached him as he observed Emma reading to a group of younger children. "Might I have a word?" They stepped into her modest office, where she poured him coffee from a pot that had clearly seen better decades. "I've been running this place for 32 years, she began, "and I've never seen anything like what's happened since Emma met you. But I'm concerned." Marcus tensed. "About what?" "That little girl has been hurt before. Her parents died in a drunk driving accident when she was 5. The driver walked away without a scratch, while Emma spent 6 months in the hospital learning to live with paralysis. She's learned not to trust easily." Sister Catherine's weathered hands wrapped around her coffee mug. "But she trusts you completely. Yesterday, she asked me if you might be her daddy now, since you're taking such good care of everyone." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Sister, I never intended—" "I know," she interrupted gently, "but Emma's heart is bigger than her understanding. She sees the good you're doing and assumes it means the same thing to you that it does to her. A family." Through the office window, Marcus watched Emma helping 5-year-old Tommy with his breathing exercises, her small hands demonstrating the techniques with infinite patience. "What are you asking me to do?" "Be careful with her heart. If you're planning to disappear once the novelty wears off, please do it soon. But if there's any part of you that sees what I see—" "What do you see?" Sister Catherine smiled. "A man who's been broken, finding healing through a child who refuses to stay broken herself." That evening, Marcus sat in his penthouse, staring out at the Chicago skyline. His daughter Sophia's picture smiled back at him from the mantelpiece, frozen forever at age 8, just 1 year older than Emma was now. His phone buzzed with a text from his business manager. "The orphanage expenses are raising questions with the board. How should I categorize these expenditures?" Marcus stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Personal, and there will be more." The next morning brought another surprise. Marcus arrived at Mercy Home to find Emma in deep conversation with Mrs. Henderson, the orphanage's part-time teacher, spreading papers across a small table. "What are you working on, sweetheart?" Emma beamed up at him. "Mrs. Henderson is teaching me about money. I wanted to understand your card better so I could be more careful with it." Mrs. Henderson, a retired public school teacher who volunteered 3 days a week, looked up with amazement. "Marcus, this child is extraordinary." When I started explaining basic math concepts, she grasped them immediately. Then she asked me to help her create a budget. "A budget?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "I made a list of everything everyone needs, then put them in order of what's most important. Tommy's medicine first, then food for the babies, then—" She stopped suddenly, her face falling. "But Mrs. Henderson showed me the numbers on the receipts. I spent way more than $40, didn't I?" Marcus knelt beside her wheelchair, his heart swelling with an emotion he couldn't name. "Emma, do you remember what I told you about using the card wisely?" She nodded solemnly. "You've used it more wisely than anyone I've ever known. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is your heart." Relief flooded her features, but then her expression grew thoughtful. "Marcus, Mrs. Henderson says you're very rich. Is that true?" "Yes, Emma, I am." "And you really gave me your card to help everyone here?" "I did." Emma was quiet for a moment, processing this information with the gravity of someone far older than her 7 years. "Then I have an idea, but it's big, bigger than medicine and food." Marcus found himself leaning forward, genuinely curious about what this remarkable child might envision. "What kind of idea?" Emma's eyes sparkled with excitement, but also with something deeper, a determination that reminded him achingly of his own daughter in her final days, fighting not for herself, but for the other children in the cancer ward. "What if we didn't just help the kids here? What if we helped all the kids who don't have families?" And in that moment, Marcus Giovanni realized that giving Emma his credit card hadn't been a test of her character. It had been the beginning of a transformation he never saw coming. Marcus spent that night wide awake, Emma's words echoing in his mind. What if we helped all the kids who don't have families? The simple question had unlocked something he'd buried deep after Sophia's death, his desire to make a meaningful difference in the world. By morning, he'd made a decision that would have shocked his board of directors. Instead of heading to his office, he drove straight to Mercy home, arriving to find Emma already awake, quietly reading in the common room while the other children slept. "You're up early, sweetheart." Emma looked up from her worn picture book, a story about a little bird learning to fly. "I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what I said yesterday. Was it too big, too silly?" Marcus pulled up a chair beside her wheelchair. "Emma, tell me about your idea. All of it." Her eyes lit up and she set down her book. "Well, Sister Catherine says there are lots of places like this, places where kids wait and wait for families but never get picked." Her voice grew soft. "Like me. I've been here 2 years, and nobody wants a girl in a wheelchair." The matter-of-fact way she said it broke something inside Marcus's chest. "But what if," Emma continued, her excitement building, "what if we made sure all those kids had what they needed? Medicine when they're sick, good food every day, teachers like Mrs. Henderson, and maybe people like you who could show them they matter." Marcus felt tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed in years, threatening to surface. "That's not silly at all, Emma. It's the most beautiful idea I've ever heard." "Really?" Her smile could have powered the entire city. "Because I drew some pictures last night." She reached for a folder beside her chair, opening it to reveal detailed drawings that belied her young age. The first drawing showed Mercy Home, but transformed, with ramps and accessible playgrounds, a real classroom with computers and a medical clinic. The second showed similar improvements at other buildings labeled Happy Home and Sunshine Place. But it was the third drawing that stopped Marcus cold. It showed a man in a suit, clearly meant to be him, surrounded by dozens of children of all ages, ethnicities and abilities. At the center, a little girl in a wheelchair held his hand. At the bottom, in careful 7-year-old handwriting, Marcus and Emma's family project. "Emma," he said carefully, "when you drew this, what were you thinking?" She studied the picture with him. "I was thinking that maybe some grown-ups forget that kids without parents still need someone to believe in them. You believed in me when you gave me your card. You saw something good." Marcus had to look away to compose himself. What else would this project do? Emma's enthusiasm returned full force. "We could have doctors who come just for the kids, and teachers who help them learn special things, and maybe even people who help them find their forever families faster. And Marcus," she reached for his hand with her small one, "we could make sure no kid ever goes to bed hungry again." That afternoon, Marcus found himself in his office for the first time in 4 days, but with a completely different agenda. His assistant, Catherine, looked stunned as he outlined his new priorities. "Sir, you want to liquidate the restaurant expansion fund to establish a children's foundation." "Not establish, Catherine, launch. I want lawyers, accountants, and child welfare experts in my office by tomorrow morning, and get me meetings with every major orphanage director in the city. Mr. Giovanni, this is a significant shift in corporate strategy." "This isn't corporate strategy," Marcus interrupted, thinking of Emma's drawings. "This is personal strategy. The most important project of my life." By evening, he was back at Mercy Home, where Emma had spent the day working with Mrs. Henderson to refine her ideas into what she called the big plan. "Look what we figured out." Emma rolled her wheelchair over to show him pages of notes and sketches. "Mrs. Henderson helped me research how many kids are in places like this just in Chicago. Marcus, there are over 2,000. 2,000 children, 2,000 Emmas waiting for someone to see their worth." "And I learned something else," Emma continued. her voice dropping to a whisper. "Some places aren't as nice as here. Kids don't get enough food, or they don't have heat in winter, or they don't have anyone to hug them when they're scared." Marcus knelt beside her chair. "Emma, what if I told you that we could really do this, that we could help all those kids?" Her eyes grew wide. "Really? We really could? With your heart and my resources, I think we could change everything." Emma was quiet for a moment, then looked at him with an expression far too mature for her 7 years. "Marcus, why are you doing this? Really doing this?" The question he'd been avoiding, even asking himself, hung between them. Marcus thought of his daughter, of the years of grief, of the emptiness that had consumed him until 3 days ago, when a little girl in a wheelchair had shown him what true wealth looked like. "Because," he said softly, "you reminded me that the most important things in life can't be bought. They can only be given freely." Emma nodded, as if this made perfect sense. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out his black credit card. "Then I think you should keep this. I have something better now." "What's that?" She smiled, the same radiant smile that had first captured his heart. "A partner." And Marcus Giovanni, who had spent 10 years believing his capacity for love had died with his daughter, realized that Emma Rodriguez had just given him something infinitely more valuable than his fortune. A reason to live again. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in the conference room of his corporate headquarters, facing a table full of skeptical board members. The contrast couldn't have been starker. These titans of industry in their $1,000 suits, questioning a vision inspired by a 7-year-old girl who owned nothing but a tattered pink sweater. "Marcus, we understand your philanthropic impulses," board member Charles Whitman spoke with barely concealed condescension. "But converting 30% of company assets into a children's foundation seems excessive." "Excessive?" Marcus kept his voice level, though Emma's face flashed in his mind. "We're talking about children who go to bed hungry while we debate quarterly profit margins." Sarah Chen, the company's CFO, leaned forward. "It's not about the cause, Marcus. It's about fiduciary responsibility. The shareholders will receive their dividends," Marcus interrupted. "But the company my daughter would have inherited shouldn't just exist to make money. It should make a difference." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Everyone knew about Sophia, but Marcus had never before connected his business decisions to her memory. "There's something else," Marcus continued, pulling out his phone to display photos Emma had taken of the improvements at Mercy Home. "I want you to meet someone." The images showed children laughing in a newly renovated playroom, Tommy using his new inhaler without struggling for breath, and Emma leading a reading circle with picture books that weren't falling apart. "This is Emma Rodriguez. She's 7 years old, paralyzed, and has been living in an underfunded orphanage for 2 years. Last month, I gave her access to unlimited resources." Marcus advanced to the next photo. "This is what she chose to do with them." The final image showed the orphanage's new medical clinic, where a volunteer pediatrician was examining one of the younger children while Emma translated between English and Spanish for a scared little girl. She spent $40,000 and thought it was 40. She had no concept of money, yet she allocated resources more efficiently than our entire procurement department. Board member Janet Torres, who rarely spoke in meetings, cleared her throat. "Marcus, what exactly are you proposing?" "The Emma Rodriguez Foundation. We start with Chicago's orphanages and expand nationwide. Full medical care, educational support, improved facilities, and streamlined adoption services. Emma calls it making sure no child is forgotten." "And you want this 7-year-old involved in foundation decisions?" Marcus thought of Emma's drawings, her careful budgets, her instinctive understanding of what really mattered. "I want her to be the heart of everything we do. She sees needs we miss because we're too far removed from the reality these children face." Charles scoffed. A child can't make executive decisions about millions of dollars. No, Marcus agreed, but she can remind us why those decisions matter. That evening, Marcus found Emma in Mercy Home's library, a cramped room with mismatched furniture that was somehow transformed into a magical space by her presence. She was helping 8-year-old Maria practice reading, her patience infinite as the older girl struggled with simple words. "How did your meeting go?" Emma asked when Maria went to dinner. Marcus sat down beside her wheelchair. "They think I'm crazy for wanting to put a 7-year-old girl at the center of a multi-million-dollar foundation." Emma's face fell slightly. "Are you having second thoughts?" "Never. But Emma, if we do this, really do this, it means your life will change dramatically. People will want to interview you, photograph you, ask you questions. Are you ready for that?" Emma considered this seriously. "Will it help more kids?" "It could help thousands of kids." "Then I'm ready." Her voice held no hesitation. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Anything. When you look at me, do you see your daughter?" The question caught him completely off guard. Emma's perceptiveness never ceased to amaze him. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Is that wrong?" Emma shook her head. "Mrs. Henderson told me about her. She showed me the picture in your wallet when you weren't looking." Emma's voice grew soft. "She was very beautiful." "She was, and she was kind, like you." "I think," Emma said carefully, "that maybe she sent you to find me. Not to replace her, but to help you remember what it feels like to be a daddy again." Marcus felt tears he'd held back for weeks finally surface. "Emma, It's okay," she interrupted gently. "I remember what it felt like to have a daddy too. Maybe we could help each other remember the good parts." That night, Marcus sat in his study, staring at legal documents that would officially launch the Emma Rodriguez Foundation. But his mind wasn't on corporate structures or tax implications. It was on a conversation he'd had with Sister Catherine that afternoon. "Emma's been here longer than any child should be," the nun had said. "She's convinced herself that her wheelchair makes her undesirable to adoptive families. She's stopped hoping for a forever home." "What if," Marcus had asked carefully, "what if someone wanted to adopt her?" Sister Catherine's knowing smile had said everything. "I think Emma would be the luckiest little girl in the world, and the adoptive parent would be pretty lucky too." Now, as Marcus looked at Sophia's picture beside legal papers that would forever link his name to Emma's, he realized that his daughter hadn't just sent him to find Emma. She'd sent him to find himself, the man who could love unconditionally, who could build something meaningful, who could be the father he'd always wanted to be. Tomorrow, he would sign the foundation papers. But tonight, he was going to make a phone call that would change everything. To his family attorney to begin adoption proceedings for Emma Rodriguez, because some partnerships, he'd learned, were meant to last a lifetime. 3 months later, the Chicago Tribune's front page featured a photo that captured the nation's attention. Marcus Giovanni, in his finest suit, kneeling beside Emma Rodriguez in her wheelchair outside the Cook County Courthouse, both holding a document that legally made them father and daughter. The headline read, "The Billionaire and the Girl Who Changed Everything." But for Marcus, the real story wasn't in the newspaper coverage or the foundation that now operated in 12 cities. It was in the small moments that had accumulated into something miraculous. Emma's laughter echoing through his penthouse, her wheelchair ramp installed alongside the grand staircase, her drawings now framed on his office walls beside his business awards. "Daddy," Emma called from the kitchen of their new accessible home, a modest house compared to his penthouse, but filled with warmth that money couldn't buy. "Mrs. Henderson is here for our planning meeting." The Emma Rodriguez Foundation had grown beyond anyone's expectations, but its heart remained the same. Emma's unwavering belief that every child deserved to be seen, valued, and loved. She attended every board meeting, her insights often cutting through complex discussions with simple truth. The new facility in Detroit should have a playground that kids in wheelchairs can use too, she'd said during last week's meeting. And the doctors should know how to talk to kids, not just treat them like broken things to fix. Today's meeting was special. They were planning the Foundation's first annual gala, an event that would raise funds while showcasing the children they served. "Emma, sweetheart," Mrs. Henderson said as she entered their kitchen, "the guest list for the gala includes some very important people. Are you nervous about speaking to such a large audience?" Emma, now 8 years old and radiating confidence that hadn't existed during her time begging outside restaurants, shook her head. "I know what I want to say. I want to tell them about Tommy." Tommy Martinez, now 6, had been Emma's first success story. The little boy whose asthma had nearly killed him was now thriving, his medical needs fully managed and his bright personality shining through. "What about Tommy specifically?" Marcus asked, settling into the chair beside Emma's spot at their kitchen table. A table chosen for its height so Emma could comfortably join every meal. "I want to tell them that Tommy is going to be adopted next month by Dr. Peterson, the doctor who helped him breathe better. I want them to know that when you help one kid, you're really helping their whole future family." Mrs. Henderson wiped her eyes. Even after months of witnessing Emma's wisdom, the teacher was still moved by her students' insight. "There's something else," Emma continued, pulling out a familiar folder of drawings. "I want to show them the newest project." She opened to a detailed sketch of a building labeled the Sophia Giovanni Center for Children's Innovation. Marcus felt his breath catch. They'd discussed naming something after his daughter, but seeing it in Emma's careful artwork made it real. "It would be a place," Emma explained, "where kids from all the orphanages could come to learn special things. Art, music, computers, science, and maybe most important, how to dream about their futures." Emma," Marcus said softly, "when did you plan this?" "I've been working on it since you told me about Sophia. I think she would want kids to have a place where they could discover they're good at things, like how I discovered I'm good at helping people see what really matters." That evening, as Emma worked on her homework at the kitchen table and Marcus reviewed foundation reports nearby, the comfortable silence was broken by Emma's thoughtful voice. "Daddy?" The word still made Marcus's heart skip. "Yes, sweetheart. Do you think Sophia likes me?" Marcus looked up to find Emma studying him with the earnest expression she wore when asking her most important questions. "Emma, I think Sophia loves you. I think she's proud that her daddy found someone with such a beautiful heart to love." Emma nodded, satisfied. "Good, because I talk to her sometimes. I tell her about all the kids we're helping, and I promise her that we'll never forget what it feels like to be the kid that nobody picks." "What does she tell you back?" Emma smiled. The radiant smile that had first captured Marcus's attention in that alley behind his restaurant. "She tells me that love multiplies when you give it away. That's why the foundation works. We're not just giving money, we're giving love." As Marcus tucked Emma into bed that night in her room filled with pictures of children from every facility the foundation supported, she reached for his hand. "Daddy, I have something to tell you." "What's that?" "I'm not the same girl who was begging outside your restaurant. I'm stronger now, braver. But do you know why?" Marcus shook his head, though his heart was full of love for this remarkable child who'd become his daughter. "Because you saw me, really saw me. Not the wheelchair, not the poor kid, not the girl nobody wanted. You saw my heart first." Emma squeezed his hand. "That's what we're doing for all the other kids. We're seeing their hearts first." As Marcus turned off her light and headed to his own room, he paused at Sophia's picture in the hallway. His first daughter smiled back at him from the frame, and for the first time in years, he felt complete. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. More children to help, more systems to change, more lives to transform. But tonight, Marcus Giovanni was simply a father whose daughter had taught him that the greatest wealth wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in hearts changed, lives saved, and love multiplied beyond measure. The girl who had once begged for scraps outside his restaurant had given him something priceless, the chance to be the man his daughters, both of them, could be proud of. 1 year after the adoption, Emma's 9th birthday party wasn't held in their backyard or at an expensive venue. Instead, she'd requested it take place at the newly opened Sophia Giovanni Center for Children's Innovation, surrounded by the 150 children whose lives had been transformed by the foundation. Marcus watched his daughter, still marveling at how naturally that word came now, orchestrate the celebration with the efficiency of a seasoned event planner. But beneath her joy, he'd noticed something troubling lately, a restlessness that hadn't existed before. "Tommy, make sure the little ones get first pick of the birthday cake," Emma directed from her wheelchair, wearing the beautiful blue dress Marcus had bought her, the first new dress she'd ever owned. At 9, she'd grown more confident, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being heard and respected. "Doctor." Sarah Peterson approached Marcus, her 6-year-old adopted son, Tommy, clinging to her side. The transformation in both of them still amazed him. Tommy's health restored, Sarah's maternal instincts awakened by the boy she'd first treated as a patient. "Marcus, I wanted to discuss something concerning Emma," Dr. Peterson said quietly. "During her last medical checkup, I noticed signs of stress. Has she been sleeping well?" Marcus frowned. "She's been having nightmares again. Dreams about being back at Mercy Home, about me leaving her there." He paused, watching Emma comfort a crying toddler with infinite patience. "I think success is overwhelming her." That evening, as Emma completed her homework at their kitchen table, now doing 4th grade work, despite being only 9, Marcus noticed her unusual quietness. "Sweetheart, you seemed sad at your party today. Want to talk about it?" Emma set down her pencil and looked at him with those dark eyes that had grown wise too quickly. "Daddy, do you ever think about all the kids we haven't helped yet?" "Sometimes. But Emma, we can't save everyone all at once." "But why not?" Her voice carried frustration he'd never heard before. "We have money. We have smart people helping us. We have everything we need. Why do kids still have to wait?" "Emma, remember what you told me Sophia said, that love multiplies when you give it away." She nodded. "But you can't give away what you don't have. If you exhaust yourself trying to save everyone, you won't be able to help anyone." Emma considered this, her analytical mind processing his words. "So what do I do with all these feelings? With knowing that right now, somewhere, there's a kid like I used to be?" Marcus felt his heart break for this child who'd been forced to grow up too fast. "We trust that we're doing what we can, and we find ways to do more without destroying ourselves in the process." "How?" Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her a message he'd received that afternoon. "The mayor of Detroit wants to replicate our model citywide. If we say yes, we could help every orphan child in Michigan within 2 years." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? Really? But it would mean big changes for us. More traveling, longer hours, bigger responsibilities." Emma straightened in her wheelchair, and Marcus saw a flash of the determined little girl who'd once organized supply distribution from her wheelchair at Mercy Home. "Then we say yes," she said firmly. "But Daddy?" "Yes, we do it together, always together." The Detroit expansion proved more challenging than anyone anticipated. 6 months into the project, Emma sat in the passenger seat of their rental car, staring out at the abandoned buildings that surrounded the city's largest orphanage. At 9.5, she'd seen poverty before, but nothing had prepared her for the systematic neglect they'd discovered here. "Daddy, how many kids did they say are in that building?" Marcus checked his notes grimly. 237, in a facility built for 80. Inside, the conditions were worse than the exterior suggested. Emma's wheelchair navigated carefully around broken tiles and water damage, while she observed everything with the analytical eye she'd developed over 2 years of foundation work. But it was the children's faces that stopped her cold. These weren't just neglected kids. They were defeated ones. Hollow eyes, slumped shoulders, the posture of children who'd stopped hoping for better. "Mom!" A teenage girl approached Emma hesitantly. "Are you really Emma Rodriguez, from the foundation?" Emma nodded, recognizing the look in the girl's eyes, the same desperate hope she'd once carried. "I'm Maria Santos. I'm 14, and I've been here for 6 years." Maria's voice dropped to a whisper. "Are you really going to help us? Or is this just another visit from people who take pictures and leave?" The question hit Emma like a physical blow. She'd encountered skeptical children before, but never such raw disillusionment from someone so young. "Maria, how many people have made you promises they didn't keep?" "All of them." Emma reached into her bag and pulled out the worn photograph she now carried everywhere, her 7-year-old self at Mercy Home. "This was me 2.5 years ago. I was scared, hungry, and convinced nobody would ever want a girl in a wheelchair." Emma handed Maria the photo. "6 months later, I had a father who loved me and the power to help other kids like us." Maria studied the photograph, then looked at Emma with new attention. "What changed?" "Someone saw past what was broken and recognized what was strong." Emma's voice carried conviction earned through experience. "Maria, I can't promise you'll be adopted tomorrow or that your life will become perfect instantly, but I can promise that starting today, you and every kid in this place will have what you need to survive and grow." Over the next 3 hours, Emma interviewed dozens of children with a compassion that amazed the adults watching. She didn't just ask about their needs. She listened to their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. "Daddy," Emma said that evening in their hotel room, "we need to do more than just fix the building and provide basic supplies." "What do you mean?" Emma had filled an entire notebook with observations and ideas. "These kids don't just need food and medicine, they need reasons to hope. They need to discover what they're good at, what makes them special. What would complete care look like?" Emma's eyes lit up with the passion that always emerged when she discussed helping other children. Individual mentorship programs. Skills training based on each kid's interests and abilities. Therapy to help them process trauma. And most importantly, connection to people in their communities who can show them different futures are possible. "Emma, that would cost millions more than we budgeted. Then we raise millions more." Her voice carried the confidence of someone who'd already accomplished the impossible. "Daddy, what's the point of having resources if we don't use them to create real change?" Emma's 10th birthday arrived with an unexpected crisis that would test everything she'd learned about leadership and courage. At 3 a.m., Marcus's phone rang with news that made his blood run cold. A fire at the Detroit facility had displaced all 237 children, and 3 were missing. "Daddy, we have to go there right now." Emma was already getting dressed when Marcus hung up the phone. By dawn, they stood outside the smoking remains of the building they'd been working to renovate. Emma's wheelchair navigated through emergency vehicles and relief workers while she processed the scene with analytical calm. "Maria?" Emma called out, scanning the groups of children wrapped in Red Cross blankets. When the 14-year-old didn't appear, Emma's composure cracked for the first time. "Daddy, where's Maria?" Fire Chief Rodriguez approached them grimly. "Miss Emma, we're still searching. 3 kids are unaccounted for. Maria Santos, Carlos Mendez, and Ashley Williams." Emma went pale. These were the children she'd bonded with most deeply during the past 6 months. "Where would they go?" Emma asked the fire chief. "If they were scared and didn't trust adults, where would they hide?" "Not obvious places," Emma interrupted. "Secret places. Places kids go when they don't feel safe anywhere else." Emma's eyes widened. The abandoned church basement 3 blocks north. That's where they are. In the basement of the old church, they found all 3 children huddled together, sharing a single blanket and a bag of stale crackers. "Maria?" Emma called softly as her wheelchair navigated the uneven floor. "It's me. It's Emma." Maria looked up with tear-streaked cheeks. "Emma, I thought when the fire started, I thought we'd all get separated again." "Never," Emma said firmly, rolling closer. "Remember what I promised you? We're family now. Families stick together." Emma pulled out her phone and showed them text messages she'd received during the drive. "This is from Dr. Peterson, Tommy's adoptive mom. She says she knows 5 families who've been trying to adopt older children but couldn't get through the bureaucracy." Emma's voice grew stronger. "And this message is from Janet Torres, our board member. Her daughter has been wanting to adopt Maria specifically. By evening, the impossible had become reality. Emergency placement services, expedited by the Foundation's legal team, had matched all 3 children with pre-approved families who'd been waiting for exactly these kids." "How did you do it?" Marcus asked Emma as they watched the children meet their new families at the emergency shelter. Emma watched Maria laugh, really laugh, for the first time since they'd met her. Because sometimes bad things happen to put you in the right place at the right time, to meet the right people. "And you believe that about the fire?" Emma nodded. The fire was terrible. But it made everyone stop thinking about bureaucracy and start thinking about what these kids really needed, families who wanted them exactly as they are. 2 years later, 12-year-old Emma Rodriguez Giovanni stood before a congressional subcommittee on child welfare, her wheelchair positioned at the witness table as cameras recorded every word. "Honorable members of Congress," Emma began. "My name is Emma Rodriguez Giovanni, and 4 years ago I was begging for food scraps outside a restaurant. Today, I'm here representing the Emma Rodriguez Foundation, which has facilitated the adoption of over 3,000 children and supports facilities caring for 15,000 more across 22 states." Congressman Williams leaned forward. "Miss Giovanni, you're 12 years old. How do you propose to advise Congress on complex policy matters?" Emma's response was immediate. "Congressman, how many 12-year-olds have you talked to who lived in the system you're trying to fix?" For the next hour, Emma presented findings from direct interviews with over 500 children in the foster care system. "The average child in our system is moved 7 times before aging out," Emma explained. "But what that statistic doesn't tell you is that each move means leaving friends, changing schools, and starting over with adults who may or may not care about who you are as a person. What specific changes would make the most difference?" Representative Martinez asked. "First, mandatory trauma-informed care training for all foster parents and facility staff. Second, educational continuity programs so kids don't lose months of schooling with each placement. Third, investment in post-aging out support, because turning 18 doesn't magically prepare someone for independent living. Most importantly, we need to change how we think about these children. Right now, the system treats them like problems to be managed rather than people with potential to be developed." After the hearing, Emma found herself surrounded by reporters asking how someone so young had developed such comprehensive policy knowledge. "I didn't learn this from books," Emma explained. "I learned it from listening to kids who are still living what I survived." That evening, Emma worked on homework while Marcus reviewed the day's impact. "Emma, do you realize what you accomplished today?" She looked up from her algebra problems. "I told the truth. That's what you taught me to do. But you told it in a way that made powerful people listen and want to act." Emma considered this. "Daddy, sometimes I get scared that people only listen to me because my story is dramatic, like I'm some kind of inspiration symbol instead of just a person." "What scares you about that? What happens when I'm not inspiring anymore? When I'm just a regular disabled adult instead of a miraculous disabled child?" Emma, you want to know what makes you effective. It's not your story. It's your intelligence, your empathy, and your absolute refusal to accept that suffering is inevitable. Emma was quiet for several minutes. Daddy, what if my real job isn't to be inspiring? What if it's to be so good at understanding these problems that people have to take me seriously, whether they find me inspiring or not? What would that look like? College, study child psychology, social work, public policy, learn everything I can about why systems fail and how to fix them. And then come back to Congress, not as the inspiring disabled girl, but as Dr. Emma Rodriguez Giovanni, expert in child welfare reform. 5 years later, 17-year-old Emma stood at Harvard University's graduation ceremony as the youngest person ever invited to deliver the commencement address. 7 years ago, Emma began, I was a 10-year-old girl begging for food outside a restaurant. Today, I'm here because someone saw potential where others saw only problems. The Emma Rodriguez Foundation now operates in all 50 states and 6 countries. We've facilitated over 10,000 adoptions and provided support to more than 50,000 children. She clicked to a slide showing recent photos. Maria Santos Torres is now 21 and studying social work. Carlos Mendez is 17 and building medical devices. Ashley Williams published her first book of poetry at 16. These aren't miraculous exceptions. They're what happens when society decides to invest in potential instead of managing problems. After the ceremony, Dr. Patricia Hawkins, Harvard's Dean of Social Policy, approached Emma. Emma, have you considered that your real impact might not come from direct service work? You could be the first person to hold national office who actually understands the system from the inside. That evening, Emma discussed the conversation with Marcus. Daddy, do you think I could actually make a difference in politics? Emma, you've already changed policy at the state and federal level. The question is whether you want to make those changes from the outside or the inside. From the outside, you advocate for change and hope politicians listen. From the inside, you write the laws and control the budgets. Emma was quiet. If I went into politics, I'd want to do it right. Double major in political science and public policy. Law school. Work on congressional staff to learn how legislation actually gets written. That's a 15-year plan minimum. Good things take time, Emma replied. And kids have waited long enough for someone who really understands their needs to have real power to help them. 3 months into her freshman year, Emma received devastating news. Mercy Home was closing due to budget cuts. The children will be dispersed to facilities across the state, Sister Catherine explained, her voice breaking. Sister Catherine, how much would it cost to keep Mercy Home operating? $2 million annually. But Emma, the state has made its decision. The state doesn't own Mercy Home, the church does. What if someone else took over operations? Emma called an emergency board meeting. I want the Emma Rodriguez Foundation to purchase Mercy Home and convert it into our flagship facility. Some things are more important than expansion, Emma replied when the board raised concerns. Mercy Home is where I learned what family means. I won't let it disappear. 6 months later, the renovated Mercy Home reopened as the Emma Rodriguez Center for Family Innovation. 15 years later, 32-year-old Congresswoman Emma Rodriguez Giovanni stood in her office, having just been sworn in for her 3rd term. Today wasn't about politics. It was about the most personal legislation she'd ever drafted. The Comprehensive Child Welfare Reform Act, she explained to her staff, isn't just policy reform. It's a complete reimagining of how America treats its most vulnerable children. The Emma Rodriguez Foundation now operated globally, having facilitated over 25,000 adoptions and revolutionized child welfare practices on 3 continents. That evening, Emma worked late when her assistant announced a visitor. Maria Santos Torres, now 33 and director of the Chicago facility, entered with a young girl in a wheelchair. "Emma, I'd like you to meet Isabella Martinez. She's 8 years old, and she has something to ask you." Isabella rolled closer to Emma's desk with familiar determination. "Congresswoman Emma, my caseworker says you used to live where I live now. Is that true?" Emma nodded, studying this child who reminded her powerfully of her younger self. "Isabella, what would you like to know?" "I want to know if kids like us really can grow up to help other kids like us." Emma knelt beside Isabella's wheelchair, seeing her own 8-year-old self in those hopeful eyes. "Isabella, let me tell you about a little girl who once thought nobody would ever want her because she was in a wheelchair. She was wrong about that. But more importantly, she discovered that being different doesn't make you less valuable. It makes you uniquely qualified to help others who are different too." Isabella's eyes widened. "Really? Really? And you know what the best part is?" "What?" Emma smiled, the same radiant smile that had first captured Marcus's heart 25 years ago. "Every kid who gets help today makes it easier for the next kid to believe they can help others tomorrow. It's like a chain of hope that just keeps growing." Isabella nodded solemnly, then asked, "Congresswoman Emma, when I grow up, will you teach me how to help kids too?" Emma looked at this brave child, then at Maria, who had gone from a scared 14-year-old to a leader transforming lives, and felt the circle of love and purpose complete itself once more. "Isabella, I have a feeling you're going to teach me as much as I teach you." Uli. That night, as Emma reviewed the legislation that would reshape child welfare for generations to come, she thought about the journey from a 7-year-old girl begging for scraps to a congresswoman with the power to ensure no child would ever have to beg again. Marcus, now 57, found her working and set a cup of tea beside her papers. "Proud of you, sweetheart." Emma looked up at the man who'd seen her potential when she couldn't see it herself, who'd given her not just a credit card, but a chance to discover her own worth. "Daddy, do you think we've done enough?" Marcus smiled, thinking of Isabella, of the thousands of children sleeping safely tonight because Emma had refused to accept that suffering was inevitable. "Emma, we've started something that will outlive us both. Every child you've helped will help others. Every life you've changed will change more lives." "That's not just enough, that's everything." Emma nodded, understanding finally that the little girl who'd once thought she was too broken to be loved had become the woman who proved that love, when multiplied and shared, could indeed change the world. The golden heart that had beaten in a scared 7-year-old still beat strong in the congresswoman, the foundation leader, the daughter, and the hope for every child still waiting to be seen, valued, and loved. Some stories, Emma realized, never really end. They just inspire new beginnings.